Hey there, today we're going to be taking a look at Black Myth Wukong running on the AMD Ryzen 7 7840HS. This specifically is going to be running on the Minis Forum UM780XTX. This is going to be paired with 32 gigabytes of 5600 megahertz DDR5 memory. Luckily, the game has a built-in benchmark you can see here, and the performance that we're getting is pretty fantastic. Now, the game is running at the absolute lowest graphics settings. We are using FSR to upscale this, and FSR is working off of a resolution of 66% of 1080p, and we are also using frame generation here. But all of this combined actually gives us a surprisingly decent gaming experience, at least based off of the built-in benchmark. And while I've found this built-in benchmark to be a pretty rock solid one, it doesn't really tell you 100% of what the experience is going to be like to actually play the game. And to see what I mean about that, all we have to do is really just start the game. The game has this incredible opening cinematic that is absolutely gorgeous and extremely hype, but the performance here is abysmal in comparison to what the built-in benchmark was telling us. To be fair, most of this is a cinematic. You're not exactly going to be playing through most of it, but there are sections where there is combat involved. And in those sections, the performance still wasn't great. It wasn't to the point where I couldn't play it, especially since it is just the introduction. But as of right now, I'm not sure how much further within the story there are going to be things of this scale that is going to drop the performance. While the FPS average isn't the worst, it's those 1% lows that are kind of a problem. But like I said, it is this opening cinematic that is the biggest problem here. And when I actually jumped into the game past this cinematic, things were a lot more like what the built-in benchmark was saying. I was actually pretty surprised by how playable the game is like this. Frame generation is proving to be one of those features that is kind of a game changer, specifically for these APUs. The fact that we have such consistent 1% lows and frame rate for a brand new title is honestly really impressive to me. Sure, it doesn't look remarkable. We are using the lowest graphics settings, and we do have to use FSR at a relatively aggressive setting. But the point is that this is a playable experience. This is something that APUs historically have not really been able to do. APUs for the most part have been really great at playing AAA titles from 10 years prior. So APUs all the way back from 2013 weren't exactly going to be great at playing 2013 titles, but if you had a game from 2003, it was going to run pretty well on an APU. And that kind of held true through most of the lifetime of the APUs that have been based off of Vega, but specifically the 780M has proven to be really impressive and an actual game changer in terms of integrated graphics from AMD. And I actually didn't even really need to change anything. As soon as I launched the game, it defaulted to this configuration and it worked perfectly to the point where I really didn't need to change anything. It's actually pretty surprising because I was expecting this game to launch with performance issues, and I'm sure those exist at the top end if you're someone that's trying to really push the graphical fidelity of this title, but I'm just really impressed that at the lower end of the market, this can do this well. I know saying that a 780M is low end is a little disingenuous considering the price category that systems with this chip end up being, but since both Intel and AMD have abandoned the low end of the market for the most part, and even AMD and Nvidia have abandoned the low end of the market, the 780M is essentially going to be the entry point for gaming for a lot of people because it's just underneath the price point where people will start to just buy full-on gaming computers. So in those terms, the 780M is a pretty low-end chip, and it's nice to see that at the very bottom of the market, you can essentially get a gaming experience out of this because it means that there's going to be a lot of people with older hardware that are going to be able to do a good job here. I'm curious to see how Vega performs on here. We might have to see a comparison there, but I'm going to assume that the lack of driver support is going to be a huge problem for Vega there, but we'll have to see. Anyways, I'll catch you guys in the next one.
Yeah.